this. So can you all hear me just fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna, as usual, take roll here very quickly, or maybe not so quickly. So so Alex Ortega, can you do me a favor? And if somebody responds in chat instead of saying hi, let me know.
Yep, will do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Frankie Alvarez.
Here.
Frankie, okay. Daniel Arquila Ponce.
Here.
German Azrin.
Here.
James Berrigan. James. Russell Barrett.
Here.
Emily Cobian. Emily?
Here.
Okay. Luke Craig.
Here.
Shirang Dubkar.
Here.
Okay. Antwi Duobang.
Here.
Okay. Daniel Fancello.
Here.
Alexander Galvan.
He's here.
Gilbert Garcia.
Here.
Michael Garcia. Michael Garcia. Wambly Gillian.
Here.
Emily Harrison.
Here.
Scott Hokanson.
Here.
Taylor Humphreys.
I'm here.
Robert Hunter.
Here.
Sahib Kapoor.
Here.
Sophia Knight.
Here.
Hung Lam.
Here.
Andrew Lee.
Here.
Jeffrey Lee.
Here.
William Lombard. William Lombard. Brian Madriz.
Here.
Madison Mafnas.
Here.
Andy Nguyen.
Here.
Alondra Nungare.
Here.
Alex Ortega.
Here.
Brian Osigueda.
Here.
Riley Patrick.
Here.
Taylor Pina.
Here.
Zainab Rahman. Zainab? Okay. Stuart Ramirez. Stuart Ramirez. Cameron Reyes.
Here.
Josu Robles.
Here.
Zachary Rubalcava. Zachary?
He's here.
Okay. Celine Santizo.
Here.
Ryan Turlip.
Here.
Omar Tobar.
Here.
Daniel Vasquez.
Here.
Chianti Yang.
Here.
Tommy Yao. Okay, so I did not hear from James Berrigan.
I'm here. I just want to get coffee.
Okay, And I did not hear from Michael Garcia, William Lombard, Zainab Rahman, or Stuart Ramirez. Going once. Notify selected students. One. Not all right. And so let's go back to share screen. I should remember to start the recording after I take roll. Okay. So let's do a clean whiteboard. So one of the things that we talked about last time, where we kind of ended off, is we said that economics was a scientific study of resource allocation mechanisms. And we talked, about all of those things. And one of the things that I had asked you all to consider, I put a little post up, was like, what's a resource and what's not? Kind of like, what's the limits of our discipline? It's an important question to ask. And I'd like you all to think about that a little bit more. But I'll tell you what I think is a good working definition. If somebody was to, come up to me on the street and ask somebody that was interested in economics, right? In studying economics, I would say that a resource, a resource is anything with an opportunity cost. So in some sense, right, I kind of have just redefined the problem because now we have to know what an opportunity cost is. But that's good for us because we do know what opportunity costs are. So one of the things that you should remember throughout this class, and especially because you all are studying econ, either your econ major, econ minor, or yeah, I don't know if there's anybody in this class that doesn't fit into those two categories. Occasionally we have somebody that's taking this class just for fun from another major, but that's pretty rare. Anyway, every discipline has jargon, and jargon are the words that we use in the discipline as to facilitate communication between other specialists. So, and there's lots of jargon in economics, and it actually causes quite a bit of confusion because you all likely realize. So I'll just kind of like pick a few folks at random and ask this question. Let's go. And so Emily Harrison, you here this morning?
Yes.
Yeah. So are you econ major, econ minor? What's your
Econ minor, marketing major.
Okay. And so well, actually, I don't know if you know this. I don't remember the name. The last person that they hired in the business school that was hired for marketing that I know of actually had a PhD in economics. So there's a pretty tight overlap in the way that marketing and econ work today. I mean, if they're hiring PhDs in econ, they teach in marketing, right? But what made you interested in econ?
Well, it's like how you said, it overlaps very well with marketing, and I wanted to have a better base with numbers, essentially.
Oh, okay. So we're math practice for you.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'll try another one. And so what about you, Gilbert Garcia? What are you doing here?
I am a economics major.
Okay. And why econ?
Well, I did real estate for a little bit, and I realized that I really like it, and I wanted to basically utilize it a little bit better. So I wanted to focus on economics to help, I guess, start up a firm and focus on actual demographics.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. By the way, you I don't know if you know this or not, but one of our professors, Professor Langa, and so it's Lange, and a lot of people would say Lang, but that's Americanizing it. So in German they say Lange. Yeah, they say Lange. So, but Professor Lang actually, or Langa actually developed a model to price real estate, and I think he had it active on the web for a little while. So you might chat with him, and maybe you all would have some fun together. He really likes GIS. So I don't know if his wife actually was an engineer for Esri that developed GIS, and so anyway, real estate is something he's interested in. Okay, so let's. What about Josu Robles? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm a minor in Econ.
Okay, and what's your major?
Manufacturing engineering.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So you want to run a company someday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually that's what happens a lot of times with people that are doing engineering is they'll minor in econ, and that really sets them up nicely for doing like later on maybe an MBA and then being in executive management or something like that with an big engineering firm, someplace like Bechtel or something like that. So so what do you think? Why were you interested in econ?
Well, I took microeconomics as a requirement, and then I thought, I was good at it. I liked it, and so I thought,
Okay.
let me minor in it.
Okay, yeah, throw it on there. What about Cameron Reyes? What about you?
I'm majoring in econ.
Okay, and what drew you to like moth to the flame, right? Why econ?
I had a choice between business or econ, and I just feel that econ would better prepare me with analytical skills needed in the career of like finance.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for sure. And what about Luke Craig? What about you?
Hi, so I used to be a math major, and then I fell out after calculus 2, per se.
Yeah.
And so I work at UPS as well. So all I do at UPS is I work with numbers to try and run my own little business, basically, because I'm a supervisor. So I liked econ because of the math. I liked the graphs, and I liked the algebra inside of everything and how it all played together as a bigger role.
Okay, nice. Okay, I'll do one more here. How about Riley Patrick? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I am an econ major. How we picked econ was I started at computer science, and then I got a bad teacher, so I was like, we're switching. And why are we switching? I didn't want to go through that. I got a 3 on the AP Econ test, which is the only test I passed for AP test.
Okay.
Econ it was.
So econ it was. Okay. So I don't know. So nobody gave me this answer. And so if I was gonna tell kind of like a personal story about how I got interested in econ. There are lots of things that led me to this path, but one of them was that when I was about 11 years old, right, there was a big recession, and because of the recession, both of my parents lost their jobs, and they couldn't find work in the state of California. We had to end up moving to Arizona. I hope you guys all have tissues for your eyes right now, because this is such a sad story. But and moving with my grandparents, and we were living with them for about a year until my parents could find jobs again. And you know, the only reason why I really tell that story is that like, and you guys are old enough that some of you lived and were old enough to understand a little bit about what was going on with the most recent recession, the Great Recession, which was precipitated by the housing market collapse in 2007. So, you know, 2008, 2009. And then, you know, right now, obviously, the economy has taken a hit because of COVID, and you all are likely to see more of that. But as an 11-year-old, seeing that kind of stuff, you know, the thing that was pretty interesting to me is there were lots of people, powerful people, presidents and senators and people that, depending upon, you know, how you're raised, you know, you learn to look up to and respect and think about these people as being highly competent, ones that have some sort of influence on society, on economic policy, right? But they were utterly powerless. And it always kind of confused me. I'm like, well, you know, my parents weren't deadbeats. So neither one of them had a college education, but they were hardworking people, you know, that had certain skills that they used, and, you know, they weren't, you know, just like, you know, basic like service workers. They'd kind of worked their way up within their industries, and they had some skills, but, you know, they couldn't find a job. And I always thought it was really interesting, you know, the sort of like twin observations that you could have somebody in our society that, you know, wants to work, is willing to go out there and work. And, you know, back in those days, minimum wage was a lot less, but they couldn't even find, you know, minimum wage jobs. And obviously, probably everybody knows here that the social safety net, the sort of you know, support people get when they're in a desperate situation from the government, was a lot less back then. But then you could have these sort of you know, and this was widespread. It wasn't just my family. There were lots of families across the country that were experiencing the same thing. That's what happens in a recession, and that the people, you know, quote, in control, didn't know what to do and couldn't fix the problem. And so I kept hearing over and over again on the television and you know, in the media more generally, like, oh, it's the economy and it's this, that. So it made me curious about how society functions and you know, what was this thing, the economy? And so that's kind of what got me first interested. And I don't know if anybody has here, and I don't know, you guys can give me a show of hands if there is anybody that is interested in economics because you're kind of interested in these big picture issues of how society functions and how people get jobs and how they you know, have a standard of living for themselves, and how we can, you know, design things to work better at a social level. So I got one hand. The rest of you guys are like, no, I'm just here because I think it's going to help me in my job or whatever. But there are a lot of people in econ, and those are kind of like the big picture questions. So there's and obviously this is intermediate microeconomic analysis. This isn't macro, but I explained before that modern macroeconomic theory has microeconomic foundations. So everything we're doing here blends in with these macroeconomic policy questions. But there's also this question, and I told you it's a scientific study of resource allocation mechanisms, and the one we're going to study the most is the market, and all its different forms of because you have different types of markets under different situations. But because in our society, about 70% of all goods and services, all resources are controlled through markets, people buying and selling stuff, private individuals, and so that's really where we're going to jump off. So I had explained that there's this jargon within our discipline, and it causes confusion. So my little sidetrack on, like, why are we all here and why are we interested in econ, is to explain that and hopefully you all realize this, that econ has impacts, the economy has impacts well beyond our profession. So I talked a little bit last time about political economy, but obviously politicians and leaders within society are interested in economics because they do realize that the conditions of the economy affect the standards of living of people in society. And so whether you're an 11-year-old and your parents lost their jobs, or you're somebody who lost their house in the Great Recession, or you're somebody that bought a meme stock and lost your life savings because you got out of the wrong time. There are everyday people that really know nothing about the study of economics, but are nevertheless interested in economics. And so what happens as you become somebody who's more skilled with economics and economic jargon, because there are people outside of the discipline that are looking for answers, a lot of times they become dabblers, right? Meaning that they don't really know anything about econ, but they'll read something in the business section because they're trying to figure something out, or they'll go to Wikipedia, or they'll be listening to the news and they'll hear, econ terms, but they won't really understand that they're used in a specialized way. They don't understand the jargon. And so there are a lot of people, and you are probably, in that group right now, that have kind of this sense when they read something like opportunity cost that, well, I kind of understand what you're thinking, but I haven't really, gotten some technical competency. So I'm just going to ignore the part that I don't understand. So in the case of opportunity cost, you might see cost, but you really don't know what the opportunity bit is. And so as you become an expert, it's important for you to know that whenever we talk about cost in economics, unless we're explicit and we say otherwise, we always implicitly mean opportunity cost, right? That's one example. So people might hear things like, for example, the long-run equilibrium of a competitive industry, and you all will learn this, predicts that businesses will earn zero, and I'll say economic profit, but we would just say zero profit because this is econ, and why would I be talking about profit if I didn't mean economic profit? Now, economic profit's different than accounting profit, and you may or may not remember that from Principles of Economics, but we'll have a chance to talk about it a little bit more. But people would hear things like, well, businesses are supposed to earn zero profit, and then scratch their head and say, well, econ just doesn't make any sense because businesses don't earn zero profit. Amazon earns billions of dollars in profit every year. And again, part of the problem is that we're using profit in a specialized way. It's the jargon within our discipline where I can, use this shorthand communication to speak to other economists. And when I use cost, I'm going to be talking about not accounting cost, but opportunity cost, economic measures of cost. And it's not, there is some overlap, but it's not the same concept. So you want to make sure whenever you hear cost in this class, unless I say otherwise, I'm going to mean opportunity cost. And you could say economic costs if you want to, but I'm just going to say cost because you all are supposed to be experts. Now, obviously, as we talk about these things, if you have questions, you can ask, and there'll be things in your text and other lectures you listen to and things like that. But if you want to, if there's some misunderstanding of the terms or the jargon, then, try to clarify it with me or, by reading about it a little bit more in your text or something like that. But so when I say a resource is anything with an opportunity cost or anything with a cost, I don't know if that helps or not, but remember the opportunity cost is, and I'll say it this way, and then I'll go ahead and put some parentheses around some things that again are implicit. So the value of the next best alternative foregone. And I should do it that way. So, and then what you'll see a lot of times that becomes implicit is the value of the next best alternative foregone. And so if you're thinking of something and you say, oh yeah, well, it's clear that I or the decision maker, a lot of times we'll talk about a general decision maker within economics. It could be a consumer or it could be a producer, but we'll just call them an economic agent. So whenever you're considering something and you're saying, well, is this a resource from an economics point of view? Then you should ask yourself, well, did the person in question, did the economic agent that is maybe going to consume this thing or control it or buy it or sell it or do something, did they have to give up something to get it? And if your answer is yes, then it's a resource. And if the answer is no, it was just something that was free and they didn't have to give anything up to get it or acquire it or use it, then it's not a resource. So if you think about this deeply, you'll realize that if you ask that question, what did they have to give up to get the thing? Then you'll realize that really the scope of what counts as being a resource is massive. And the exceptions, things that are not resources from an economic point of view, are few. I'm not saying there aren't any. I'm just saying that there aren't many. And the one other thing that I'll say very briefly is, so there's this issue of, value of, and I'll see if I can I'll just do it that way. Okay. When I'm talking about value of, so opportunity cost is literally the thing that you have to give up. But in a lot of economics discussions, we'll place a dollar value on the thing that's been given up. And one of the major things that goes on in econometrics and other things, other pieces of theory within economics is, how do you place a value on something that doesn't have a clear market price? You can't, so maybe I'll talk to you for a minute. Alondra, how are you doing? Alondra? Oh. Okay.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, yeah. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good. So, what time did you get up this morning?
At 8.
Was it earlier than you wanted to get up?
Yes.
And why did you get up?
Because I have class at 8:30.
Yeah, okay. So what did you give up to attend class this morning?
My sleep time.
Yeah. In fact, I know this too. I don't know how old you are, but I have a nearly 19-year-old daughter in the other room, and she's asleep right now. And she often she sleeps till about noon. And she sleeps till noon because she has classes in the afternoon. so she might sleep later than that. I don't know. I mean, I think her best like wake up time is maybe early afternoon, and then she'll stay up till I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I'm not sure she gets any more than 8 hours of sleep. She just doesn't sleep when I sleep. How much would you have been willing to pay if you could have gotten, let's say, another? What time would you normally get up?
Like around 10 or 11.
Okay, so 2 hours of sleep you gave up, so you could be here this morning. Let's just say, what was the value of that sleep to you?
Like why I woke up?
Well, no. I'm actually trying to put a dollar value on it. So I can say, so I just want to point out, so clearly I can say your opportunity cost, because it's what you would have done if you didn't come to class, your opportunity cost of coming to class was 2 hours of sleep. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's proper and the correct use of opportunity cost. But in most econ, like textbooks, when we talk about opportunity cost, you're going to see a dollar value, right? So they'll say something like, oh, well, Alondra's opportunity cost of coming to class was $20, right? And what I'm trying to explain is, well, how did they get to that, right? Because your true opportunity cost was literally the 2 hours, but what was the value in dollars to you? Like, what would you have been willing to pay to get the extra 2 hours of sleep?
I don't know, probably like $5.
Okay, so $5, that's fine. Yeah, so if 2 hours of sleep, so you must be pretty well rested. You know, because sometimes people would be willing to pay a lot more than that for 2 hours of sleep, right? If you've been up for like 36 hours and you were desperate for the sleep, it might be worth more. But so 2 hours of sleep was worth $5 to you. And that's just a value that we elicited from you. We asked you. And there are actually economists that go around and ask people, hey, you know, what's the value of an hour's worth of sleep to you? And they do kind of survey things. And that's one place where you can get values. And I say surveys because there's a whole like methodology and it's very technical. It's called contingent valuation, but it's basically surveys asking people. But the point is, like, is there any place out there, can you go order 2 hours of sleep on Amazon?
No,
right? There's no visible market price for sleep. And so valuing sleep is hard to do. I can identify your opportunity cost. You gave up 2 hours of sleep, but putting a dollar value on it, that's a lot harder. Do you see what I mean? Alondra?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that if you had told me, for instance, that instead of going to work, right, you came to class, that would be a lot easier, right? Because if you said, oh, I would have gone, do you work, Alondra?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, where do you work?
At Home Depot.
Oh, nice. I love Home Depot. And Home Depot pays you something, whatever, we'll just say it's $15 an hour, okay? But if you said, like, I gave up my shift at Home Depot so I could come to class, then we would know that was your next best alternative. You weren't going to sleep. You weren't going to go visit your grandma. You weren't going to go hang out with your friends, but you were going to give up 2 hours of work. Then I could just see what your pay was, right? Your pay rate, your wage was, and I could calculate in dollars your opportunity cost. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So your true opportunity cost, if it was work that you gave up, you would say, I gave up 2 hours of work, but I could easily put a dollar value on that by knowing what your wage is. And so a lot of times when we're talking about opportunity cost, or we're talking about cost in your text, you're always going to see dollars, but don't ever think that that's really the truth. The textbooks and the questions are automatically making this assumption that whatever your the thing is you give up to get the resource in question, in this case, the resource you're getting is the education, right? Whatever you gave up to get the education can easily be valued in terms of dollars. And so they just say, oh, the opportunity cost of 2 hours of education is $30. And they kind of skip that step. But so hopefully you understand the distinction and why I put value of the next best alternative. Do you have any questions about that, Alondra?
No, it's pretty.
No, okay.
It's okay.
Oh, it's okay. So okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about, and the thing that's really going to be central for what we're going to study in almost every aspect of this class, like from now until the beginning, is we're going to talk about one proposition, and we'll talk about it at length. But you guys may have heard this already. And I'll put little stars around it. So just throw up your hand. And has anybody heard this before? Competitive markets are efficient. Okay, I got one. Only one. I hope that two. I was gonna say, I hope that nobody took me for principals, because if you don't remember this, I didn't do a very good job. Okay, and Brian, Wombly, Gillian, Russell. Okay. And Keontae. Okay. So how about we talk to Sophia for a minute? How are you doing, Sophia?
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm good.
Did you get your coffee?
Yes, I actually did.
Yeah. I know mine went cold. I'm gonna have to go heat it up in the microwave. Oh well. So have you heard this idea that competitive markets are efficient?
I feel like I have, but I forgot. So I didn't raise my hand.
That's fine. That's fine. So do you have any idea what it means or no? Or is it kind of like fuzzy?
Like in comparison to other markets, I guess it's saying that that's the best one.
Yeah, I mean, I think at a really like kind of like high level, yeah, but obviously we haven't really defined what we mean by competition and it to be competitive, and we haven't defined efficiency. So you're right. I mean, like from a non-specialist perspective, and it's okay to identify yourself as a non-specialist or a specialist in training, right? It's fine to just have this general notion of, well, it means something like good about competitive markets. Now, I want to tell you also, there's another more technical way of describing this, and maybe I'll change the color of my text. Well, orange, maybe. Okay, I'll do it this way. So the only reason why I'm doing this is because I'm hoping that, and I guess I'll put it in. I'll put it in red. This in economics goes by the name, the first fundamental welfare theorem. And you've probably never heard that before, but that's okay because, you know, you're becoming an expert. But yeah, first fundamental welfare theorem. And so I'll ask, Sophia, does this sound important?
Yes, because it's the first, and that's also a theorem.
And it's fundamental.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah, like fundamental means like it's like the foundation, right? It's like the bedrock. It's you know, this is where we start. And so in most econ principles textbooks, you won't hear it described as the first fundamental welfare theorem, not until you like take my class. You will hear that competitive markets are efficient, and there'll be all of this stuff that you talk about, like that there's deadweight losses from monopoly and oligopoly, and deadweight loss is another way of describing an inefficiency, right? Inefficiency, right? So as you deviate away from competitive markets, you generate inefficiency, and that's demonstrated over and over again. And we're going to do that in this class. We're going to show you, okay, we're going to take a competitive market, we're going to have the government regulate it with a tax or a price control, and oops, we're going to get deadweight loss, and we're going to say it's inefficient. But you may not realize that it all gets traced back to this idea, which is the first fundamental welfare theorem. And again, I highlight it here and now because everything that you're going to see in this class, you know, you may at some point in time say, like, well, how does this all fit together? And the answer is going to be, it is something to do with the first fundamental welfare theorem. And I guarantee you, if you guys ever ask me a question, you're like confused about something, I'm going to say, Dr. Hunter, how does this have to do with the first fundamental welfare theorem? And I'll tell you, because everything. And in fact, I would go so far as to say, with very, very few exceptions, everything in economics centers on the first fundamental welfare theorem, focuses on this idea that competitive markets are efficient. And if you were to ask me, and I won't, spend a whole lot of time on it, and maybe it's something we could talk about in office hours if you're more curious, but why, is economics sort of obsessed with competitive markets and efficiency? I could tell you, why I believe that's the case, but it's not explicit. It just is, right? So you have to kind of ask yourself, well, is it right for our discipline? I mean, like, is it a good thing for our discipline to be obsessed as we are with competitive markets and efficiency? That's a really good question. If you ask me what I think the answer is, I think yes, it's great, but that doesn't mean it's the right answer. It's just the case that we are obsessed with competitive markets. We are obsessed with efficiency. It is embedded in our discipline, and it's even given this special name, first fundamental welfare theorem. So we need to understand better, this really brief and succinct statement. What do we mean by efficiency? And the first part of the class is really all about that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about competition. And I don't know if anybody has any questions right now, but if you do, go ahead. I see there's one hand up. I don't know if that's just an old hand. So James Barrigan, your hand is still up. But okay.
My bad.
That's okay. That's okay. So competition. So we have, these different notions of competition within economics. And the one that really applies to the first fundamental welfare theorem is perfect competition. And so we have conditions for perfect competition, and we're going to explore all of these throughout the class. But one of them is that there is no market power. And the second one is that there are no externalities. And if you don't know what these things mean yet, that's fine. We're going to talk about them. And the third one is there's complete information. So if there's a market and it satisfies these three conditions, then what will happen is that perfect competition implies what we call, and you might have heard this term before, price-taking behavior. And so let's talk just a little bit about price-taking behavior. Price-taking means that all of the market participants look out into whatever market they're participating in, and they look at the price, and they if you're going to say it a little bit more formally, you would say they treat the price parametrically, meaning it's a parameter of their decisions. So they just take it as given. The price for a candy bar is $1, and they don't think about how they could possibly manipulate the price or change the price. They just take it as given like a solid, tangible thing, like, a cliff edge or the sun in the sky. It's just there. And then they make their decisions. So alternatively, and one of the things that we'll talk about as we deviate from perfect competition is that sometimes participants in a market, because the market's not perfectly competitive, will behave strategically with respect to the price. So they'll do something where they try to manipulate the price. So that's basically what we're going for. And one of the things that we can prove is that if all the participants in the market are engaged in price-taking behavior, then the market outcome will be efficient. Okay, and we still haven't defined efficiency, but this is our chain of reasoning. And so if you're ever sort of like curious, you're like, well, like, when are we going to end up with a situation in which something's inefficient? Then, and it's a really good question to ask, because again, that's kind of the center of our discipline, is trying to examine resource allocation mechanisms. And in particular, we're going to examine markets, and we're going to be concerned with measuring efficiency. And when we have inefficiencies, efficiency fails within a market. And it's always going to be because we've broken one of these assumptions. And as a result, the market participants aren't behaving as price takers, and we end up generating inefficiency. So this is kind of like a general overview. So it's 9:43, and we're supposed to be finished at 9:45, and I'll leave it there, and we'll pick up here next week. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.